The following show is brought to you in part by support from Robbins, Kaplan, Miller, and Cerisi. We don't just practice law, we make history. Online at rkmc.com.
Hello and welcome. I'm talking with Linda Berglin tonight. Linda is a distinguished leader in Minnesota. Most of you know her name, you know who she is. She was in the Minnesota House of Representatives from 1973 to 1981, and then she was a state senator from 81 until 2011. Just this past August, she resigned, and she now is at Hennepin County and telling me that the transition has been smooth and kind of easy for her. She is a health policy program manager with Hennepin County. Are you the health policy program manager, or are there more than one of you?
I think I'm the only one.
Okay. Okay. We'll hear more about what that job involves in just a minute. But I always, with my leaders, like to start in the beginning and just find out some about your early days. And I know you were born in California. I'm sure everybody thinks of you as such a Minnesotan that it might be hard to think about that. But you came here when you were 8, am I right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I was born in California because it was during World War II. And my father was in the Navy and my mother was working in the shipyards. So that just happened to be where we were living because of those circumstances. Our family isn't from California.
Are they Midwesterners?
Yes, both of my parents were born in South Dakota.
Oh, okay. I'm a South Dakotan, so we'll have to talk about that later. So you grew up in Minneapolis?
Mm-hmm.
Went to school at the College of Art and Design, got your degree in graphic design, which is an interesting thing to know about you. I bet you haven't been able to use it very much, have you?
Well, I was in graphic design when I ran for the legislature. I ran my own small business at that time, and I worked for a small company before that, and before that I worked for the city of Minneapolis designing a book for them.
Oh, you did? Yeah. So you got to explore that field for a while. Well, the Star Tribune and many other papers gave you so many tributes when you left. Probably more than anyone else in Minnesota, you knew the ins and outs of our welfare system, our healthcare system. Are you missing realizing that you're in that very pivotal role?
Well, I miss the way it used to be, but I don't miss the way it was when I left. So I think that's the best way to answer that question. I am a person that likes to be doing, not waiting for something else to happen so I can be doing. And I was feeling like I was waiting. And so now I'm doing again, and I'm much happier with that.
That's very understandable. The level of tension with our government, not just in Minnesota, but in the United States Senate and House, there is so much waiting and posturing and holding back in terms of compromise and holding back in terms of communication, as it sounds to me. That's got to be just must have been extremely frustrating.
Yes.
How did you just personally cope with that level of tension that we have had in the last, what would you say, 10 years?
Well, of course, for the first part of that time, as the chair of the Health and Human Services Budget Committee, I came to terms with it. It wasn't what I wanted when I wanted that job, but I came to terms with it because I said that there needed to be somebody strong in the legislature, in this area especially, to be a counterbalance to Tim Pawlenty, who was governor at that time.
And you knew you were strong?
Yes, and I mean, I knew the subject, and I learned how to do the budget very well, and so there were a lot of things that I wasn't able to make progress on necessarily, but a lot of things I was able to save from the chopping block.
One of the articles that I read about you said that you single-handedly sometimes would find ways to save programs or to make the budget work. Did you feel that you were sometimes staying up late at night and racking your brain to do this?
Yeah, there were a few times there were sleepless nights, that's for sure. And each time I did it, I said I wouldn't begin to be able to figure out how to do it another time because I thought all the tricks I had in my bag were gone. But each time I would find something else. And so it was like kind of a story. It ends, but then it can have a different ending, and then it can have a different ending after that. The budget was kind of like that.
So it was kind of a moving target in a way, right?
Right. My goal always was to find cost savings through efficiencies and to find better ways to deliver health care and not to cut people's benefits and not to cut people off from having health care access.
There was a quote in the Star Tribune that I thought I would share with the viewers. It said, when you called it quits, you were, in their words, rubbed raw by the political winds that blew her party out of power and began breaking up programs that you had created and nurtured over decades to help low-income people. Did you feel that way, that things you had created were being kind of thrown to the winds in a way?
Somewhat. And it wasn't just for low-income people, you know. I'm still grieving the loss of the medical education program at the University of Minnesota that helps us get providers into every one of our communities, helps give them their opportunity for residencies. So,
which was something you had started?
I had worked on it, and I had helped to keep it going. There had been proposed cuts to it in the past, and I had always maintained the program. So in the age of healthcare reform, we're going to need more providers, especially primary care, not fewer.
And especially in our rural areas, correct?
In all of parts of the state. We're going to need more in the urban area and in the rural areas. But it will be the rural areas that will feel the loss of programs like this first.
That makes sense. Minnesota Care, give us an update on where it is right now with all the changes. And this was sort of your baby, wasn't it?
Well, myself and a number of other legislators, none of whom are there now, they all left before I did, worked to put this program together. And Minnesota Care still remains and has the same benefit set that it had before, except next year, for people at or above 200% of poverty, they will have a defined contribution program. And that will probably mean that they will have a high deductible type policy.
Which means also that they will be paying a premium for getting the program, right?
Everybody pays a premium based on their income. But in addition to the premium that they normally would pay, they will have a lot of first dollar bill coverage will be lost. So they'll have bills at the beginning maybe they'll forego preventative care, maybe they will not go see the doctor right away when they're sick, see if it'll go away, that kind of thing. And so a lot of times that gets people in trouble with their own health care.
Do you think ultimately that's going to cost the state more?
Well, I did not think it was the right direction to go, in part because it doesn't fit with the federal reform very well at all. Sometime later this fall, the federal government is going to announce a minimum benefit set that we must provide to everybody through an exchange type of insurance program up to 400% of poverty. And it's not going to be a high deductible type of plan. So it's like this high deductible plan is going this direction and the federal government's going that direction.
So how will that be reconciled?
Well, I mean, you could do the high deductible plan for about a year, and then you'd have to do something different. And to me, the cost of starting something up for just having it run a year isn't worth it.
Yeah, that does seem like an odd way to do it. Well, we'll talk more about some of the federal laws that you are more directly involved in now, but I want to go back just a little bit into your personal life. How many children in your family, Linda?
I have one daughter.
My
birth family?
Your birth family.
Yeah. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother.
And where were you in the lineup?
I'm the oldest.
You are, okay. So many of the leaders have been the oldest child, which is interesting. And did your parents encourage you to go into politics in an indirect way?
Not at all.
Were they political folks?
No, not at all.
No.
My whole family was pretty shocked when I did this. Yeah, they were. Like, what's the matter with you? Are you losing it? You know, that type of thing. And it was really my church that inspired me to go into politics. And
how did that work in your mind?
Well, really, in my church, you know, there's a lot of discussion about you don't just go to church. You have to take what you learn in church out into the world and into the community. And so you have to be a leader in terms of your faith in your community.
Put your belief into action kind of thing.
Right.
And you're a Methodist, I read?
I am.
Yes, okay.
And so, you know, at that time, one of the things that was going on was the war in Vietnam. I was opposed to it. I ran to be a delegate so I could express my views within my own political party. And one thing led to another, and the next thing you knew, I was running for office. And
you kept getting elected, didn't you? I mean,
yes.
You never lost an election, did you?
No, I never regretted having run either. It has been the most wonderful educational experience a person could ever have. And it's been a wonderful opportunity to help so many people and to work with so many people to try to improve things.
What do you think about your leadership style made you so successful, kept you in office all those years? People kept voting. Yes, of course, Linda, yes. What about your personal style do you think works so well?
Well, I think it's important to be able to figure out what you want to accomplish and then what others around you want to accomplish, whether they're on your team or whether they're on the opposite team. Everybody has something they're trying to accomplish. And if you can figure out a way to accomplish what you want and to accomplish what the others want, then you have achieved a victory for everybody, and that's the best way for politics to work.
So are you saying being very clear about your goals?
With myself, yes, I had to be clear about my goals, and I had to be okay about incrementalism. I know there's some people that don't like that idea. They think it's got to be all or nothing and it's got to be today or never. But I really believe that most of the time politics is pretty incremental and that people are more comfortable with changing things incrementally also. And so for me, making change incrementally over time really was an okay thing. And then making it possible for other people to fit their ideas into the ways they would like to see change happen also. So it isn't like just a straight line. You could go this way and then that way and then this way, but you're still moving in that
Some
direction.
up and down and,
Yeah.
and back and forth. Did you get a lot of input from constituents?
Oh, sure. A lot of good ideas came from constituents. A lot of constituents came over to testify about various bills I worked on.
Did you find it hard to not be able to please all the people all the time?
Well, no, because as I said, there are some people that would like things to go faster, and if you know you can't get them to go faster, then you know it's better to be moving forward than it is not to move at all.
So you were able to be patient
Yes.
with your leadership role. What was the hardest part in the Senate years, through all those years? What was the hardest time when you look back on it and think,
Well, I think the
what
hardest
put you to the test?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing was the session where Governor Pawlenty was proposing eliminating coverage, health coverage for people without children. And I didn't want that to happen, but he had a majority of Republicans in the House, and he was the governor. So the Senate was kind of the in the minority in terms of our views. And yet we were able to hang on to a program. It was a reduced benefit set. And very quickly after that, we were able to restore that benefit set. And so
That's right.
it was like, you know, that was my goal, but I wasn't sure how much or if I would be able to achieve that goal, just to get back to where we had been. And but sometimes you just have to believe that if you keep working, you'll get there.
Your new job now as a health policy manager at Hennepin County, just in a nutshell, what does that mean that you are in charge of?
Well, I'm helping both at the county level and at the HCMC hospital level to prepare for health reform and to understand how various parts of the county can complement each other and work together to help achieve better outcomes for people and lower healthcare costs.
So that is, I mean, as you state that, that is a major job.
Yes.
It doesn't sound easy. I mean, you have to look at broad systems, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, while I'm not as well known for this, I did work on payment reform and healthcare cost containment at the state level, and laid down the pieces of the reform that would be needed. The federal government has now come to the table and is doing similar things. And so now working at the local level to make those pieces work and see how we can actually deliver what was envisioned, that is a great opportunity.
As you talk about this, I see a sparkle in your eyes. And so I believe you that you're enjoying this. And it's not overwhelming for you, is it?
Oh, no.
That's great. What part of the health reform that is often called Obamacare do you find yourself being most excited about, and what part do you feel is most problematical?
Well, I think it's exciting that more people will have coverage that's affordable. This is important. Because when people don't have coverage, they tend to use more resources in the healthcare system that everyone else ends up paying for.
And that I don't think everybody understands. That when people end up going to the emergency room, we're paying as taxpayers.
Exactly.
In the long run, right?
Exactly, and we're paying for about the worst kind of care you can buy. So we really need to change that, and getting coverage that's affordable for everyone is one step in that direction. Then also payment reform, so that we're not just paying for more tests and more procedures, and providers can earn money by really making the system be more efficient and effective and helping people stay healthy instead of just getting paid when people are sick.
So looking at results.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so those two things within the health reform are very critical, and hopefully they will be something that we all will be looking back and be glad we have them.
What part of health reform do you think might not work so well?
Well, I think the part that's not going to work so well is when people don't have coverage. And it is possible, depending on how the rules get adopted, that when you're going from one employment situation to another where you might be in the exchange buying individual coverage, there could be a gap. Mm-hmm. Also, immigrants are not covered under the federal law.
They are not. I did not realize that.
And so, you know, we can still have, while we'll have a reduced amount of uncompensated care, we'll still have uncompensated care. And I believe once we get to that point, we need to have a very robust discussion as a community about, since we are going to pay for this one way or another, how is it we want to pay for it, and what is it we want people to have?
I know the HCMC system is stretched to the max right now and can't keep accommodating, from what I understand. So a robust discussion sounds very good.
Right.
There are so many issues I'd love to just ask you about, Linda, and we have so little time. But one of the things that's going to be discussed a lot in the next 12 months, 14 months, is the constitutional ban on gay marriage. And I know you were telling me you voted against it. I'm not surprised when the discussion was done earlier. But what do you think this kind of discussion means for our state?
Well, first of all, we do have a law that says that marriage has to be between a man and a woman in Minnesota. So a law is okay. A law can be changed or modified as time goes on. But the Constitution, to change the Constitution, I think, in this way, is not using the Constitution for what it was meant for. I believe the Constitution is to give citizens rights, not to take them away. And so I believe that we can have a discussion about what people believe in that area, and people can disagree, and we can respectfully disagree. But when we're changing the Constitution, that's like a permanent document. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it's so permanent that even if people wanted to change next session of the legislature and not have this be on the ballot anymore, they couldn't do it. Now that it's been voted to be on the ballot, it has to be on the ballot.
It's set in concrete to that degree.
Yeah. So changing the Constitution is a serious business, and we should take it seriously, and we should think about the Constitution as something that enables us all to have rights and responsibilities, but we shouldn't be taking them away.
That's an important way to view it. And I'm guessing you also, as a pretty well-known liberal Democrat, would say that you are also for couples marrying, no matter their gender preference.
Well, I think we need to realize that we're going to have families in Minnesota that are not the same, that look different from each other. And we need to be able to protect the rights of people within those relationships. So whether it's the right to inherit, or the right to visit someone in the hospital when they're sick, or the right to protect children within a family, we need to remember that we need to do that for all families. And the way in which we legalize relationships is one way of protecting families.
Did you see Wheelock Whitney's editorial this weekend about this issue?
No, I didn't.
It was well written, and he just said that other people's choices don't undermine his choice to be in a heterosexual relationship, and just well put. We just have a couple minutes left, but just in a sentence, Linda, what is your recommendation for our correction system? I know that's one of your areas that you've been known as a real expert in too.
Well, we need to make sure that we fund our correction system adequately so that people that end up there because they got in trouble with chemical dependency or because they had untreated mental health issues can get the treatment they need while they're in prison, and they can get the follow-up care when they leave prison. Because
so that they come out at least not worse off than when they went in.
Well, I mean, I'd like to see people get treatment so they come out better off. Mm-hmm. And we need to all remember that people that end up in prison because of a mental illness, depends where the incident that occurred that drew people's attention to the individual occurs, but it could have just as well, they could have ended up in a hospital. Mm-hmm. And if they ended up in a hospital, they would have gotten treatment for sure. When they end up in prison, we need to make sure they get treatment for sure also.
That's very, very wise and very well put. Well, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
Coming down. And I think listening to you, we know why you've been a respected leader, respected by people on both sides of the aisle, and it's been great to have a chance to pick your brain and learn about your new job, and I'm so happy you are thriving in it, and best of luck carrying out some of the big plans for the future, Linda.
Thank you very much for having me today.
You're welcome. We'll be back again next week. Until then, have a good week.